All right, this is my what is watercolor video. So I've been down here selling real estate on 30A for 18 years now. This is 2023, and watercolor has become an absolute flagship destination for both the rental side and the real estate side. So I'm going to mix the two today, but I get constant questions about watercolor, and it takes a couple of trips for everybody to kind of figure out what it is. It really blends in with Seaside that's right next door. So I'm going to bring up a map and I'm going to give you my locals perspective, very short and sweet guide to watercolor, and then piggyback that at the end with kind of real estate pricing. Because if you were looking to explore it, it would give you a good idea of what it's going to take just to kind of get started in there and what to look for. This is a 499-acre resort. St. Joe Company that developed this property started in 1999. They own this property since 1927, which is crazy to think about. But St. Joe was a timber company. They kind of went around accumulating property for timber purposes. And I think at some point, they just kind of woke up and realized that they had accumulated some of the most incredible real estate around Florida and became the development giant they are today. And watercolor has become one of their signature properties, especially for our area. So let's take you over this. So this is a large map here. And I think the number one thing to point out, and I think that's the hardest part at first, is just what, because when you go through, this is the beach side down here. So look at my lower left here, the part that I'm circling. This is the beachfront section of watercolor from right here over to this other light blue over here. Now, for purposes of our discussion, 499 acres, you can see that that's not a large section compared to 499. But in our area, that's a very generous amount of beachfront. So this is the Gulf of Mexico and the beachfront right here, okay? For real estate purposes, a lot of times, traditionally, neighborhoods and real estate, wherever you are, it's most expensive on the waterfront, and then it gets less expensive the further you get away from the water. That is not the case here at Watercolor. There are still expensive options on the Gulf front, but some of our most expensive real estate is sold as far north as you can go in the development. All right, I'll explain why, but here's a big part of it. The beachfront was pretty much dedicated to condos and Watercolor Inn. This is Watercolor Inn here. It's a 60-unit hotel, the only 4-star in the area, one of the few actually luxury hotel options on Scenic 30A. And it's kind of a way that a lot of people get started to learn about watercolor. They'll come out and stay at the hotel for a couple of nights, get their bearings, and then maybe bring themselves or their family back for an extended trip. This is the Beach Club. Now, this was redone the last couple of years, started in 21. They completely revamped the entire Beach Club. Looks amazing. One of the best amenities on 30A, hands down. All right. All this area in and behind here are mostly condo buildings. You've got some parking here. You've actually got some fractional ownership right here. But these are small boutique condo buildings. We do not have a lot of condos to offer in watercolor. There are some single family homes. This area right over here to the left is called Park Row. All right. These are single family homes. Now, they can technically be called, for a lot of reasons, they're on the Gulf front of watercolor, but they're not Gulf front in the traditional sense that you kind of walk out your back door and you're stepping in sand. Okay. There's a buffer of state park in between them and the water. It provides some amazing views. But in terms of what people go, I only want a Gulf front home, it's not that traditional sense. It's just the Gulf front option for watercolor. Now, Casey, why isn't that the most expensive real estate in watercolor? Well, it is expensive, but the reason why is that the lots are narrower. So the maximum size house that you could build there does not match up with some of the other lots in other parts of watercolor that are larger, more bedrooms, more amenities, things like that can bring a higher sales price. All right, so before we go too deep into watercolor, this is Scenic Highway 30A running right through the heart of it. You see this white area right here, okay? All this area right here. This is Seaside. People don't really understand that watercolor and Seaside are two different places for the most part. Obviously, when they keep visiting, they get a handle on it, but they really blend together. There's some key aesthetics and style that Seaside brings that nobody else does. But for the most part, the design is Florida cottage. So when you're rolling through there, they really blend together. But this map really shows just how close they are. But it's a key component to why watercolor is so popular. You can stay at Watercolor and walk right down the street and enjoy the Airstream trailers and the amphitheater and everything that Seaside has to offer. So they're very much married to each other because of their proximity. But you can see on the larger map here just how far north Watercolor goes. This is pretty much Seaside right here that I'm showing you with a little covered up by the map here. But Watercolor runs very far north. So let's talk about that. So when you first come into Watercolor, you've got the beachside section. There's some great restaurants here, Chan's, coffee places on the corner, new breakfast spots. They've done an amazing job with this town center. As you go through the park, you'll see that you're taken directly back to the lake. This is Boathouse, Lake House, great pool here. Playing on the lake, playing on the trails is as much a part of Watercolor as anything else is, okay? You can see throughout this map that there are tons of walking and bike riding trails all over and throughout Watercolor. It will literally take you to every section. So even if you're staying up in the northern part, up around Western Lake Park, you can simply bike over across the bridge and you're right at the boathouse or across the street to the Gulf, okay? For real estate purposes, this Crimson Park area, this is phase one. This is where some of the first homes were built. Love this area, love it for a couple of reasons. One, it's kind of off to the west and not a lot of through traffic when this place is busy during vacation season, but you're also close to the beachfront amenities. So if you like the beachfront, but also want to be kind of tucked away, I love this section to kind of start looking. It's on the expensive side, obviously, because it's the best of both worlds and holds some of the larger lots that they have. So there's some substantial houses there, but a great spot to get started. All right, you see there's some narrower lots as you go back through this way, over through Cobalt. So the home sizes get smaller, especially over here through Cottage, okay? A lot of people love this tennis courts over here at the Cottage District, Cobalt Park, all this. You can find some smaller homes here, all right? But the tennis courts are great. You're right on top of Seaside. And again, you're just a couple of steps away from being on the beachfront if that's what you're looking for. But you're starting to get a sense that all this phase one stuff, it's very easy to get to the beach. You can also get to the parks, best of both worlds. So believe it or not, in my opinion, the second most popular spot to buy real estate or find a rental is back over here around Camp Watercolor. Camp Watercolor is an incredible amenity. They just enhanced it over the last couple of years. Lazy River, pretty much a full football field back there. It's really where look, anybody can enjoy it. It's a great secondary option to a beach. But this seems to be most popular for families with children. And at some point, whether to start the day or end the day, they end up here at Camp Watercolor. So I have friends that love to stay around here when they come visit because they just want to be walking distance to Camp Watercolor because that's where their kids are going to spend most of their time. From a real estate and investing side of things, you can kind of get tucked away back here. There's some very generous lot sizes, beautiful houses. So you can get tucked away, but also it's close enough that you see those rental rates improve just because it's close to Camp Watercolor. The rental companies love Camp Watercolor. It's just another level of amenities they can advertise being close by. So all this purple, let's call that the Camp Watercolor area. Also love this area back here, right around Pine Needle, okay? In the southern, kind of the southeast section. I like it because a lot of secondary and full-time users will like this section because there's decent lot sizes, but you're also kind of tucked away. So you're close enough, but also a little bit far away. You're also, this Watercolor Crossings area over here is where the Publix is and some other restaurants. So you can kind of get in and out of Watercolor pretty easy over in this section, and you're close to the amenities still. So really love this section from both a rental standpoint and a real estate standpoint. So Casey, where are the largest sales price in Watercolor if they're not necessarily on the Gulf front? As history has served over the last 3 or 4 years, it's over in this section on the north side. Now this is as far north as you can go in Watercolor. Sandhill Pool. You can kind of tell from the map, just in quickly comparing a lot of stuff to the south, you can see the differences in a lot of these lot sizes, okay? Another cool feature is the amount of kind of lakefront options. Again, depending on where you're from, Watercolor lakefront is not like some other lakefront that you may be used to where you're putting your own dock. There's a natural buffer between all these lakefront sites. There's trails in between the home and the lake for the most part, but you have great views. So it's just another added level of view since you're away from the Gulf, okay? Vermilion, back in here in the extreme north end, you can see some of these lots on the point here. Blackwater over in this. These streets back through here are home to some of the largest sales transactions in watercolor. Why is that? It's one of the newer sections all through here that's been developed. Because of that, the market still proves that it loves newer construction. So the styling meets what most people are looking for from both a sales and a rental aspect. Okay. But also the lot sizes are larger. This is like home to more of the 6 and 7 bedroom size houses, where in the early days of watercolor, people were really building more traditional 3, 4, and 5 bedroom houses. You'll find some 6 and 7 bedroom houses with carriage houses back here that can accommodate larger families. And so we've seen a spike in interest across the board for that kind of demand as well. So that's on the northern end. All right, let me show you this other part over here. Now we're kind of, it feels like we're leaving watercolor. This is 395. This is an area that runs straight into Seagrove if you're familiar with the area. This is Seagrove. This is phase 4 of watercolor, all through here, the light blue that you see. You'll notice the difference in lot sizes, okay? You also feel, you're in watercolor, but you're a little bit, some people feel a little bit displaced from the main amenities. Because of that, the real estate prices in this area have been less than they've been in the main body of watercolor around phases 1, 2, and 3. So phase 4, it's a lot of people prefer phase 4 because they can still go and use the amenities, get in and out of watercolor very easily. And honestly, the price points are great over in phase 4. All right. But you can see how much of that there is rolling over here. Also, another sneaky thing about it is getting in and out of the grocery store very easy over in this part. Okay. So it's a truly amazing resort, and it's a place. My favorite thing about it, it is by every sense of the word, a place that you can park your car for the week, just use the bikes, and do everything that you need to do, including grocery shopping, plenty of dining opportunities, experiencing Seaside, and a lot of other stuff around here. So let's talk real quick while I've got you and say, okay, Casey, we're interested. We stayed in watercolor. Now, what's it take to buy in watercolor? So I'm going to show you 2023 Q1 numbers versus 2022 just for comparison. So let's just talk averages. We'll keep this at 30,000 feet. Average sales price in 2023 through the first quarter, 3.3 million. Okay, that's for watercolor homes. All right. Average price per square foot, it's about $1,060 a foot. So it'd be very general for me to say, Casey, I want to buy a house. What am I looking at? Average sales price 3.3, average price per square foot, $1,060 a foot. It's very easy for me to say. I don't expect that to move big in either way anytime soon. I just think that's pretty much what it takes to get in. Now, can I find you a house for 2.5 million? I can. There's a lot of people looking at that, and it's a tougher find. Okay. So if you want to buy anything less than that average, we really got to be on our game. And you may have to take on something that you might want to update yourself. Okay. At 2.5 million, it's likely not going to be up to date or renovated. All right. So let's talk about condos. There's very few condos. So these numbers are not going to be, there's just a couple of transactions a year. Like in the last 6 months in 2022, there were 11 transactions. This year has been 2. So of those 2 transactions, the average sales price is 1.9 million. Okay. Average price per square foot, $1,520 a foot. That's up from $1,326 the year before. So entry-level price on houses, you can find stuff for 2.5, 2.6 on a house. It gets difficult. Entry-level options on the condos right now, 1.4, 1.5. Go all the way up to 4.5, 5 million on condos. Okay. So that's just a very high-level overview, but I think it's good enough to kind of show you the gist of everything. And then you can go and look and see, okay, should we go stay at the inn and check things out? Should we get as close to the beach? Check out that amazing beach club. We've got kids, they're going to want to be at Camp Watercolor. There's just a lot of options, but I think the point is that people love watercolor because they can really come back every year and try a different section out and see where the best fit is. And then once they get locked in, they kind of gravitate that way. And I find that in real estate too. Okay. You can't go wrong anywhere in there, but I hope this helps you. If there was anything else additional or detailed that I can provide for you on this, please do not hesitate to reach out.